Bereshis. One never has to get too far away from Bereshis. Bereshis. Two starts. This is reflected in everything in Judaism. Two starts. In the highest level of Kabbalah, that's the two zimzum. First the circle, zimzum, of the nefesh, and then the linear, yasha, zimzum of the ruach. That takes care of that. Bereshis. Barashis. Created six. There were two types of these sixes. The two reshis that we're going to talk about are related to the Shabbat, of which there are two Shabbatai, two Shabbats. The general Shabbat and then the personal Shabbat. This is expressed in all the writings as one must observe two Shabbats to deserve Olam Haba. The initial Shabbat is found in the 6 days of creation. Remember, it's Bereshis. The second Shabbat is the Shabbat of going out of Mitzrayim. That's considered the second Shabbat. This dualness is reflected in the two versions of the Ten Commandments, the Zakah and Shomer, in Divrei Echad. They come out simultaneously, but the first, the Zakah, is the reflection of Bereshis, where the Shomer is the reflection of the coming out of Israel, the coming out of Mitzrayim. A beautiful gematria that I just developed recently is that the word Mitzrayim, when spelt out full, Mem is 80, Zadeh is 204, that comes out to be 894 plus the 14 letters plus the 5 words or letters themselves comes out to be 913, which is Bereshis. So in the coming out of Mitzrayim, we have a reflection of Bereshis. These two Bereshis are also the reflection in the Jewish year of the years starting in Tishri and the months starting in Nisan. The years in Tishri are reflected in the 6 days of creation, where the months are reflected in the coming out of Nisan, coming out of Mitzrayim. This shall be the first of the months for you. This again is the dual way of counting. The general of Bereshis, of the creation of the world, and the particular of Mitzrayim. There's two aspects of the Jew, his coming into the world in the creation of the world, and that's a general concept of the individual, and then a particular coming into the world, coming in, getting out of Mitzrayim, out of this limitation, and being a personal relationship. That's the personal aspect of Shabbos. The other 6 is reflected that in words like Shemitah, and in the 6 years that also 6 years that the Hebrew servant, the Avid, has to serve before he's set free. That's reflected in Mitzrayim. Coming out of Mitzrayim is the freeing of the slave, where the 6 days of creation are obviously the first general. This beautiful 6 and 1 is how we get to the Shabbat. After 6 days of work, we get a Shabbos. Same thing in what happened in Mitzrayim. Moshe asked Pharaoh to let the Jews have 1 day a week of rest. Pharaoh wouldn't give it to them. Moshe was asking for a Shabbos. The difference between a slave and a Jew is only a Shabbos. This idea of 6 and 1 is reflected again in the first word, Bereshis. Bereshis. 6, created 6. So this interplay here. I've also now going to extend this to the Tefillin. The Tefillin of the head represents to me the general creation of Bereshis. And the Tefillin of the arm relates to me the personal level of Shabbos, of coming out of Mitzrayim. Remember that the Jews came out with a Yad Hazaka. Is that not the left hand? Remember, the Yad Godola is the right hand. The Yad Hazaka is the left hand. So the left hand Tefillin is actually the personal Tefillin. You see? Even so, sometimes people wear a cover on the shell Yad because it's their personal Tefillin. This now extends into, are there 2 mitzvot here with the shell Rosh and the shell Yad, or are they 1 mitzvot split? And this becomes a maklokas. The other weird thing about the mitzvah of Shabbos and the mitzvah of Tefillin is that on Shabbos you don't put on Tefillin. So you're always having 2 of the 3 oaths. You have the bris, the oath, the permanent oath, and then these interplay of the 6 and the 1 of the Tefillin for 6 days a week, and then Shabbos for the 7th day. So, in a certain sense, the Shabbos, the creation of the world, the coming out of Mitzrayim, the Tefillin, are all one. All one aspect. If you know one of these mitzvot, you know them all. You know the Jewish calendar. You know the concept of giving birth. You know, because that's what coming out of Mitzrayim also symbolizes. You know, all these concepts, and they're all tied into this one concept of Bereshis, how it extends through the Torah itself, how it's reflected in the 6 days of creation, and how those are reflected in the coming out of Egypt as the personal creation. One is always involved in a certain level of remembering Shabbos. One is always supposed to remember Shabbos in the same sense that he's supposed to constantly remember coming out of Mitzrayim. This is his personal development. We are always in Olam Haba, and we are always in Golus. These are two interlocking, paradoxical concepts. We're always starting the year in Tishri, and we're always starting the year in Nisan. We're always in the first set of 10 Commandments, and we're always in the second set of 10 Commandments. We're always in the general and in the particular. Now, there are a lot of motifs that I've alluded to here. Enough to talk forever. Each one of these motifs is a hologram into a fountain of youth, a fountain of knowledge, an everlasting and unending cup. Shabbos has so much to do with the coming out of Mitzrayim in its personal sense. The general is the 39 Malachos, but the personal Shabbos is Kiddush and Havdalah. The Kiddush that we recite, coming out of Egypt. We're constantly coming out of Mitzrayim, and the gematria I've alluded to is the gematria of Bereshis. And so we're constantly starting anew. This gives us the concept of teshuvah, being in constant teshuvah, constant return to ourself, to biddle our ego, to change the ani into an ayin. A constant work. And this is only the start from these few motifs of Bereshis, going out of Mitzrayim, Shabbos, Tefillin, the Shemitah, the 6 years of a Jewish slave and then being free. How beautiful all these tie-ins are.